Yes, yes. Jackson, do you hear them? The millions and millions who are so thrilled we are back after Thursday and Friday vacationing in the Hamptons.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are waiting to talk to you about a team named Jackson State. I'm anxious to get your thoughts as well. And we have the Little Piddles weekend wrap-up. We have Jeremy Rutherford coming up. This thing is loaded for bear. It's called Balloon Party, and it's driven by Munganess, Burkhardt, Alton Toyota. My name is Tim McKernan. That's Action Jackson, and we welcome you to participate in today's show by texting into the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. And you also can participate in the chat in the YouTube channel and talk it over with the likes of Tiny PP and who else is in there today? Jackson, do you know who's in there?
Probably Droid FX.
Yeah, Droid FX.
Yeah. Tommy Summers.
Tommy Summers is a big force in there. I like that Tommy Summers. He's a good guy.
Usual suspects, but if you're looking to join up in the YouTube chat and talk it over, feel free.
Yeah, it's sponsored by the wonderful people at Air Alliance Team, and it is on YouTube on the 101 ESPN channel. And you get a chance to talk it over with the dude, Clayton Davis, and is it Eric Nickens?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, Eric Nickens is in there, and they're talking it over. All right, Jackson. Here we go. Before we go to this Little Piddles Angry Beaver weekend wrap-up, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Listen,
Did you have trouble sleeping?
No, I had no trouble sleeping. I had accepted the fate as it happened. I was in shock. I was expecting 5 p.m. Sunday game coming off of that big win against Minnesota to just watch an easy game where they dominate. I can see some progress going on. And instead, I was treated to certainly the worst loss of the Dennis Gates era, one of the worst losses probably in program history, a quad 4 loss in November. And yeah.
Jackson State 0-5.
Jackson State was 0-5, but even if they were 5-0, they're a quad 4 team. They play in the SWAC. It's not what you want. You want to beat those teams by 20 or 30. They were punished last year to a certain extent for not beating these teams in a more impactful way. And instead you lose to that team. Like, listen, I think Missouri's going to have some cool wins this year. I think they're going to beat some teams that they are not as good as, and they're going to have some cool wins in the SEC. But it doesn't matter, because if you have a quad 4 loss in November, you better win every other game outside of that, because it is tough to come back from. But I still believe in Dennis Gates. I still think he's the right coach for Missouri. I think there's still plenty of momentum when it comes to recruiting-wise. So I'm not going to jump ship by any means, but it just sucks. It sucks. It sucks.
Would you describe yourself as emotionally vulnerable for this program in which one or two listeners like to try to pick at us?
I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say no, because that would be not truthful, and this is honesty in media. Yeah, I'm emotionally vulnerable, but I think I've done this long enough to understand, like, you got to have thick skin on days like this, because if you want to be celebrated when they do well, you got to be able to take it when they do poorly.
Rank the emotional impact of this loss compared to the football losses of Louisiana State University and Brian Kelly convinced that Missouri scheduled that game for homecoming, and the loss between the hedges, low 16 days or years ago.
So like with the LSU and Georgia losses, that's like a team, where every loss, every win matters. So it has way more significance in that sense. Plus, you go beat Georgia. Now you control your own destiny for the SEC East and can go and play in Atlanta and maybe play for a college football playoff. So that one hurts a lot, because this is despondent is the best way, because now the rest of the season's all going to be framed around this loss to Jackson State.
You really think so? Really?
Yeah, I mean, you lose like that in November. You can go beat Illinois in the bragging rights game. You can go get some really cool wins in the SEC, but that kind of loss, you're not going to shake this year. That's a loss you can't shake.
So are you saying this thing is over? Is this like Missouri going into Laramie?
No, it's not over by any means, but you have to go now win way more games than you would have if you had no quad 4 losses. You can lose.
It's an albatross.
You can lose to teams like Memphis. That happens. They're a good team. You can lose to teams like Minnesota. You win that game, great, but you cannot lose to these quad 4 teams. You can't. You just can't.
All right, your thoughts, 314-399-9646. Air Comfort Service text line, Air Alliance studio cameras, YouTube chat. It's hopping now. Wow, it's hopping. Chris Hutchinson's in there. He's going. Austin Bishop's in there. Old Nikki Housen's in there.
Hey, Nikki.
Hey, Nikki. So you can chat and talk it over in the YouTube chat. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Rutherford, 10:45, as the Blues get one last night. That was looking a little rough on Thursday and Saturday, but they beat the Ducks last night. They've kind of owned the Ducks. And so they get that win last night, finish off the road trip against the Coyotes, game you can catch right here on 101 ESPN, and then head back to St. Louis for a Friday night game against the Nashville Predators. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Jackson Burkett, a despondent, self-acknowledged despondent Jackson Burkett for the Angry Beaver Little Piddles weekend wrap-up.
But powering through.
Yeah.
We're professionals.
Champion.
Listen, you move on. You take a loss and you move on. Unlike Missouri football, though, who won a barn burner on Saturday evening on national TV against Florida after a stress-inducing final drive capped off by a Harrison Mevis game winner. The narrative I'm seeing around this game is this is a game that Mizzou would traditionally lose. Do you buy into that? Is this team more resilient than you can remember? Did that come from veteran leadership or just having more talent than years prior?
Wow, what a wonderful question, Jackson. Two things stood out to me about Saturday night for Missouri against Florida. Number one, and I really want to emphasize this because I'm a big macro guy. You've observed that.
Yep.
I told James Carlton, the great James Carlton, who sponsors the Gabe DeArmond segment on this program, and he asked, what the interest level last year was when Gabe would come on the show. And I go, I got to be honest with you. Even the hate text stop for us when Gabe is on. Why? Why did I bring that up? Because it just showed there's a level of apathy towards Missouri football. And this year, what I am noticing is Missouri is getting the casual fan on board. And the casual fan is the part that Missouri has lacked for most of my lifetime anyway, with a handful of years of exceptions. But to have that kind of crowd on a night in which a lot of students would historically go back to their hometowns and sell it out and have the energy in the building that they had, that was an SEC caliber football game atmosphere. And so major tip of the cap to the fans. And it also shows what goes on when you can get casual fans going. It also helps when you have afternoon or night kickoffs. Secondarily, with regard to your question on is this a game that Missouri historically loses, the answer to that is yes. I, in the third quarter, was watching the game with my wife, and I said, I don't think they're going to win this game. Missouri was playing poorly. Florida was playing better. Florida certainly has talent, but they were also injured, and they still were doing that. And so when the 4th and 17 play came, I was just prepared for kind of similar to how I was watching David Freese's final strike against Neftali Feliz in the 2011 World Series, Game 6, just like, this sucks, but I've got to watch it, and I shall accept the inevitable frustration that comes with the outcome. And then Freese hits the ball over Nelson Cruz's head, and the rest is history. In this case, I don't even know if it was on my mind, the possibility of them converting that.
Right.
So when it was converted, it was so surprising that it was a rush that it had even taken place, much less the two passes that followed that made it kind of a chip shot for Harrison Mevis. But great teams win games like that. And plenty of people go, say, well, Missouri just Missouri'd. But what did Georgia do when they were down 14-3 against South Carolina, or when they were tied with an Auburn team that just lost at home by a lot in Mexico State? How many times have we seen Washington fighting for its life this year? Now, I'm not even talking about Saturday in Corvallis against Oregon State. I'm talking about against some butt-asses. Louisville, a team that's still in the mix, unlike Missouri, with one loss. And they had to fight for their lives on Saturday against Miami and the previous Thursday against Virginia. Michigan, hail to the victors. Well, hail to the victors was very fortunate that their punter was pinning Maryland back inside of like their half-yard line, because Maryland was in a position to beat Michigan on Saturday. Rutgers had it close with Ohio State a few weeks ago. And who else am I leaving out? Well, Florida State's had plenty of near misses, and now they've got a situation with with their quarterback. Point being, this is what championship teams do. And they had a bad game, but they were able to overcome it. It was historically un-Missouri-like, but maybe there is a new chapter being written. Jackson, your thoughts?
Yeah, man, that was totally like panic-inducing, but also super entertaining football game. And you have a moment where you got a minute and a half, one timeout left, and you got to go get yourself a field goal. Brady Cook takes that challenge head on, 4th and 17, hangs in the pocket, steps up, make a big throw to Luther Burden, then continue to make big throws to get that field goal shorter and shorter for Harrison Mevis, and then you execute on the field goal and win. I mean, like we've said now, this is a game that Missouri would traditionally lose, and instead they make the effort and they come back. And even, Florida, credit to them too, man, because they came in with a backup quarterback and looked like more dangerous offensively with their...
Yeah, when he came in, they were more dangerous.
With Max Brown, like that was very, very impressive on their end. But for Missouri, because you're not going to have your best stuff every week. You're not going to go out and play like you did against Tennessee every week. That's just not how sports work. But when you don't have your stuff but can still make huge plays down the stretch like Missouri did, I mean, that's what two of their, Tyron Hopper and Chad Bailey. Bailey's been out for a little bit, but Tyron Hopper's been out ever since like the second quarter of Tennessee.
Yeah.
To do that without those guys, man, it's impressive.
Yeah, well, Florida was, as you made reference to, with a backup quarterback and two replacements on the offensive line, and their offensive line was already beat up. But you got to win games like that. They get that one, and similar to Middle Tennessee, that wound up launching them. That was a terrible game as well. They won both those games. A number of teams would love to have that kind of win where it can spur you on. If they play like that against Arkansas, they're going to lose to Arkansas. Arkansas went into the swamp and beat the team that took Missouri down to the final 5 seconds. So can't take Arkansas for granted. They'll know they'll have Sam Pittman back next year. They made that announcement yesterday in Fayetteville. I'm anxious to see how the team performs knowing that.
Right.
On Friday, I can't imagine it will be much of a crowd. Again, relative to if Arkansas were a good team. And then you had Missouri in the spot that they are in. So we'll watch that on Friday at 3 p.m. Meanwhile, we'll be watching the baseball signings this week because things are already happening, and it involved a player that the Cardinals were thought anyway by a number of people to be in the mix for with regard to Aaron Nola. It's not happening. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. Jeremy Rutherford at 10:45. You're listening to Balloon Party, driven by Mungan Burkhardt, Alton Toyota on 101 ESPN and on YouTube. How are you doing now that the first segment's in the books?
Good to get past that. I really had to pee during that first segment.
No, you got a prostate problem?
I just drank a lot of coffee and water today. And so I certainly need to do that, but I took care of that in the break, and now I'm feeling good.
Your thoughts on Jackson's prostate? Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. And they are really into it in the YouTube chat, and I like to see that. I wonder if they missed us on Thursday and Friday.
I have to imagine, but it was, BK and Ferrario stepped up, and opening drive stepped up, so thank you to them.
Daddy B. Cookin is now in the YouTube chat and says, first time here in the YouTube chat, been hearing good things. See a couple familiar names like Jeff and Nick, and it's good to finally see Tiny PP in action. Yeah, people come to watch him play now.
Right.
It's like Tiger in the early 2000s.
Very similar. Very similar.
Jackson, Jeremy Rutherford's going to be with us at 9:45. If you live in Denver, 10:45 St. Louis time.
Right.
8:45 if you're out in L.A., and I know we have a big audience out there. I think Daddy B. Cookin lives in Santa Monica. And we also are going to have Cardinal discussion because it's time for the second question of the Little Piddles Angry Beaver Weekend Wrap-Up.
What? John Mozeliak spoke over the weekend about Aaron Nola signing with the Phillies and his non-tender contracts. Based on some of the audio and the moves that he has made, where do you think his mindset is at as we head into such a pivotal offseason?
Well, I listened to his interview with Tom Ackerman on Sports on a Sunday Morning, and didn't sound like he was particularly surprised by what happened with Nola going back to Philadelphia, which tells me the expectation was Nola just wanted to stay with the Phillies. And whereas the AAV may be lower than was projected for 7 years, 172, I think Nola, say he gets 5 years, 160. Well, you got 7 years, 172, and you get to stay in the place you wanted to be. And that gets into something that is incredibly obvious when I present it, but an important thing to continue to remember and then wonder about as this free agency process plays out. The Cardinals can make the biggest offer in the world, but if the player doesn't want to come here or wants to go somewhere else, it doesn't matter what the Cardinals offer. I will present to you Giancarlo Stanton, David Price, and Jason Hayward. All three could have come here. All three chose not to. I'm not saying Aaron Nola chose not to. I think Aaron Nola just wanted to stay with the Phillies. And so if you get into a spot with Blake Snell and he wants to be in one particular spot, well, what are the Cardinals going to do? Yoshinobu Yamamoto, where does he want to go? Doesn't matter what the Cardinals offer. So along those lines, one of the big three is gone. Two remain. And I personally, I am happy the Cardinals did not give somebody who will be making $20+ million when he's 36, 37, and 38 that contract. That's where I am personally. But I think I am in the minority relative to Cardinal fans. Maybe not Balloon Party listeners per se, as far as a large percentage, but Cardinal fans as a whole, I think, expected going into this offseason either Nola or Snell. Right. That's what I think. The majority did. And so now it's Blake Snell, or you're going down to the Sonny Gray level. And I saw the John Morosi reporting yesterday the Braves were all over Sonny Gray now that they didn't get Nola. So that's the thing. It's not like it's the Cardinals and one other team. It's the Cardinals and a bunch of teams that want this starting pitching. So I am looking at it and I'm going, man, I feel it's a lock over the next 3 weeks. Either the Cardinals are not going to get one of these guys, or the Cardinals are going to overpay ridiculously and hurt themselves. Personally, I hope it's that they don't get one of these guys, unless it's Yamamoto. I'd be excited about that at 25 years old. But the fan base is going to be furious. That's what I think is going to happen. Not everybody. Some people kind of acknowledge the same thing that I think, which is it's just going to be too tough to rebuild a pitching staff in this market at this time, and do so responsibly. But I think the majority of fans are presenting this as a challenge to ownership. Are you going to show that you really want to win and you're willing to spend money? Right. And they can offer whatever they want to offer. But if players are going, I want to win. I'm in my 30s now. So Cardinals have a long way to go. I'm just one pitcher, and they still need more, and I want to maximize my return, and the Cardinals still going to need to go out and spend more money in order to solidify the rotation. Plus, Paul Goldschmidt's up after next year, and even if he wants to stick around, he's 36 years old. So I just think the Cardinals are in one hell of a tough spot, and I will continue to say that. And in a way, as weird as it sounds, I'm like, oh, dodged a bullet. Didn't sign Aaron Nola. That's how I feel. How do you feel, Jackson?
So for me, I know it like lessens the impact of not getting someone like Nola because he's staying in Philly. You know, clearly a guy who enjoyed his time there and has put pen to paper on that because he signed another contract with the Phillies. So to me, that's like, all right, he stayed with the Phillies. Now, I think a lot of this hunger for pitching, especially top-tier pitching, will be even more passionate from the Cardinal fan base if the Cubs go out and get Blake Snell, Yamamoto, or even
Ohtani.
Ohtani is obviously what the headlines read on Friday. So if that is the case, and
you're right about that,
the Cubs step it up, and now the NL Central has become more daunting, I think fans are going to go crazy if the Cardinals don't pony up and spend for pitching, even if that spending is not necessarily wise in terms of the long-term future of the franchise. Because if they don't compete this year, after saying they're going to compete, and they also see the Cubs not only getting Craig Counsell, but stepping up their spending and possibly even getting Ohtani, I think we could be seeing a real weird situation.
I don't think the Cubs went out and spent that kind of money on Counsell to sit around in the offseason.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're right about that. That would intensify the anger. Yeah. That is really, I mean, if there's no Snell, if there's no Yamamoto, and I don't think many fans are expecting Yamamoto, but if there's no Snell, there's no Yamamoto, and even though, you know, I wouldn't mind it in the sense that you're not going to be committing to him for 7 years. Sonny Gray doesn't necessarily excite me, but nothing is going to for if they're going to try to be back in the mix in 2024 outside of Yamamoto and trades or in a short-term 1 or 2 year deal for a pitcher like a Waka, for example, that the Cardinal fan base is going to be pissed.
Big time. You
get Snell, and then they'll be pissed at me because it's probably going to be like a 6-year, $180 million kind of deal.
Right.
And I'm going to be like, oh, God, this is going to be something, boy, Snell and Contreras on the books in the back end of their careers. Have fun with that. So I'll be the bad guy then. So there's what we got. There's my prediction. Add it to Predictionary.
Sure.
Thank you. All right.
Also, the Reds have a really good young core, and if they can bolster that.
I was thinking that as you were talking about the Cubs, because then you could add the Pirates continue to Vanderbilt their existence.
They sure do.
But the Brewers are trending down, whereas the Reds are the one trending up, and here come the Chicago Cubs.
Right. Yeah, because the Reds, with their young core, if they can bolster that with good pitching.
Yeah, they need to spend some money on pitching themselves. But so do the Yankees. So do the Red Sox.
Dodgers.
Braves.
Yeah, I mean, literally everybody you can think of. That's what I'm saying. Like, if they lose out on some of these deals to, like, the Yankees or Dodgers or Mets, I think fans will be. But if it's like losing out to the Reds, losing out to the Braves, even though I know that the Braves are a different category than they used to be, but still, that's how fans view them. And certainly the Cubs, that's going to intensify big time in St. Louis.
Well, this is interesting. Tiny PP kind of trying to market the team to the free agents. He says, wait till I take Snell and Yamamoto to see the Polar Express. Yeah, that is scenic.
Yeah, certainly.
I didn't know that Tiny PP was involved in that, but yeah, if he can get Snell and Yamamoto to ride the Polar Express and see Santa waving to the children atop an abandoned building just north of the landing, I would imagine that increases the Cardinals' chances. I don't think it locks it up.
I think it would behoove Cardinal front office to really lean into the St. Louis Yuletide atmosphere when you're trying to attract these free agents.
I like that Yuletide atmosphere. Jackson, do you have a third question on this Angry Beaver Little Piddles weekend wrap-up?
Matter of fact, I do, Tim.
Yes.
Just as soon as the Blues make a little headway, they take a small step back after being outscored 10-2 combined against the Sharks and the Kings, but they followed that up with a win over the Ducks. Did the way the team bounced back against Anaheim prove that the leadership from both Berube and the players is strong even during this kind of different season, for lack of a better term? And is the faith in Jake Neighbors exciting to see for a young player? And have you seen improvement in the power play?
I respect all your questions, and I think they're wonderful questions, but I want to make sure I say this at the outset. How many games this year how many of the Blues played at this point? 18, 19 or something in that range?
I think 18 is enough.
Would you say the Blues were just kind of, fine. In other words, you either get
Yeah.
what went on for most of that homestand, where you accurately projected that they would pick up more than 5 points, I think, in 4 games. And I made fun of you, and I still am going to not apologize because that's the way that I work. I think you
controversial host.
Absolutely. And then on the other side of it, you have, that one home game, not the second one, but the first home game against the Coyotes, where you're like, oh my God, that first period in Vancouver, that was like that. Can you see a worst first period from an NHL team? The 2-win San Jose Sharks putting on the clinic they put it on Thursday. The first period against the Kings on Saturday. And then on the other side of it, there have been games where you go, my God, look what this team's capable of. But there really aren't a lot of middle-of-the-road games.
Yeah.
So I guess the 2023-2024 Blues are consistency, and their consistency is their inconsistency?
Wow.
Think about that. Now, eat some of these mushrooms and think about it.
Yeah, boy, it feels like I already have. Yeah, it feels like I already have. But I hear what you're saying.
It's just, it's a team that you can't say in late November they had to have it. But God, I was going, if they go out and lose like 5-1 to the Ducks, and they've been outscored about 15-3 through the first 3 games of this road trip, a road trip that when you saw it after the great homestand, you're going, oh, they might be able to.
You lick your chops.
Yes. So because it was the final game of the 3, you go into the game against the Coyotes going, okay, let's see if you can split the road trip and you're none for the worse. Hey, you didn't pick up any points, whether you lost 10-0 or 2-1 or 5-1. Same deal with the point total, and then come back to St. Louis and take on the Predators on Friday night. So it just shows how this team has the super wide delta with regard to performance. So who are they? They're a
Good
team
question.
that either can win and beat the hell out of the Avalanche, or they're a team that can get skull pounded by the San Jose Sharks. That's a wide delta, Jack. That is a wide delta. Jeremy Rutherford will give us his thoughts coming up at 10:45. We continue with the Little Piddles Angry Beaver Weekend wrap up. This is Balloon Party, driven by Munganess, Burkhardt, Alton Toyota on 101 ESPN and on YouTube.
Hey folks, the world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is now available in Illinois. That's right, the Circa Sports app is now available to be downloaded and used in the great state of Illinois. So if you live here in St. Louis, you just drive across the river, or if you already live in Illinois, sign up for the Circa Sports app, because the Circa Sports app is sports betting the way it should be, with big app bets, high betting limits, tight money line splits, and the best customer service. That's right, you won't talk to a chat bot when you deal with Circa Sports customer service. They use real people. You always talk to a human. It's the same people who run the Circa Resort out there in Las Vegas. Now, let's say you're trying to wager on tonight's highly anticipated Monday Night Football game between the Chiefs and Eagles. The Chiefs are favored by 2.5 points. Maybe you like some props, maybe you like the total. Either way, you bet through Circa Sports. So visit circasports.com for more details and get ready to start betting like a pro. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234. This is Action Jackson with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues win yesterday, final score of 3-1 over the Anaheim Ducks. The Blues will be back in action on Wednesday night as they take on the Arizona Coyotes. You can catch that game right here, home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Pregame will start at 7 p.m. and the puck drops at 8 p.m. And last night in the NBA, the Suns defeat the Jazz 140-137 in double overtime. Kevin Durant with 39 points. That was another SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. This is Balloon Party. My name is Tim McKernan. That's Action Jackson. Back after 2 days vacation in the Hamptons. We went together. My wife gave her blessing, and we got a one-room suite and really enjoyed ourselves, if you don't mind. And it was a sports talk radio camp.
It was, yeah. And it's always done in Southampton in mid-November.
That's correct.
That's where the real wealthy people go.
The old money. Right. We're always old money. As a South City guy, I'm old money. No, I was scheduled to be off, Jackson, anyway. And then I got ill. Yeah. So that's kind of a bad beat. That you're off.
Oh, yeah.
But you're ill. But I was working on the launch of Sound Story, which we have now expanded today. Today we have expanded Sound Story, which I started here in St. Louis. And you may have heard Randy Carricker talking about it. You'll hear about it on the Fast Lane with Jamie Rivers and Anthony Stalter as well. But we are now in Seattle, Minneapolis, Cincinnati, and West Palm. So that's why I took off to work on that. And then I got sick.
Brutal.
But you know what? You know what we do? We grind through it, and we focus on the task at hand. And the task at hand is this. Jeremy Rutherford coming up in a matter of 8 minutes, and the Little Piddles Angry Beaver weekend wrap-up. Question number 4.
Mizzou hoops. Brutal, just brutal.
This is just a chance for you to self-reflect. I'm going to look at Instagram.
That's cool. After a statement win at the barn in Minnesota, coming back from a 20-point deficit that you would have thought would be the catalyst, and then 3 tune-up games in between their next big opponent. Unfortunately, 0-5 Jackson State came into town on a Sunday night and beat Missouri. I am despondent, as nothing is worse than a quad 4 loss in November. However, does a loss like this truly test Dennis Gates and how he will handle the rest of the season with the recruiting having so much momentum? How will he pull fans back into his good graces with such a brutal loss early in the year?
As such a young guy, how did you know that much about Craig Paquette on your St. Louis Starter Packs account? Because I knew he played for the Cardinals, but the fun fact that you have this morning of Craig and his wife Jessica owned the Crush Boutique in Chesterfield Valley on your St. Louis Starter Packs account, I didn't know that. And I mean, he was here in 1999. You were a wee lad.
Right. Well, not only since St. Louis Starter Packs has seen such great engagement,
right,
we've actually expanded, and we have a research desk.
Oh my God, you have a research.
Yeah, we have a research desk. So my best talent is delegating to others.
It is. You are a delegator.
I can recognize what my strengths and my weaknesses are, and so something like that, being young.
You're more CEO.
Right. I can delegate. I can straight up delegate.
Well, that account's wonderful. Congratulations on what you've built with St. Louis Starter Packs. With regard to Missouri basketball, I'll yield my time to the gentleman from Horton Watkins.
I'll keep this extremely brief because I have one more question for you. No, people don't give a damn.
My gosh.
Listen, this team doesn't...
People care about you, and they know you're upset.
Yeah, well...
Let me ask you this. Let me see where you are. Would you trade the win against Florida in football Saturday night for a win against Jackson State on Sunday?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that...
I can recognize priorities.
Okay.
This team, I'll just keep it very brief.
It's okay.
It's
fine. This is your...
seconds.
No. This is your time.
No, I'll go 30 seconds here. This team doesn't have the guy to go get them a bucket. When Mizzou basketball's been good, they've had guys who can just late in shot clock or when they don't have a good set running, can just get them a bucket. It was Cassius Robertson and Jordan Geist. It's been Xavier Pinson or Drew Smith, and it's been last year Demoy Hodge or DeAndre Golston or Kobe. They don't have that this year. None of the guys on this team are built to be a leading scorer. They're all meant to be really good support players. They don't have that guy this year, and that was super evident against Jackson State when they couldn't buy buckets at certain times of the game. It just can't happen. You can't have losses like that we'll move on.
35 seconds. That wasn't bad.
Thank you. Tonight might be the most anticipated regular season game of the NFL this year with a rematch of the Super Bowl and a matchup featuring the two brothers, the Kelsey brothers, who have captured not just the sports mainstream, but culture in general. Are you glad that a game like this is a standalone Monday Night Football game? And where are you putting your action with the number of 2.5 favoring the home team Chiefs?
What do we call this? Honesty in media or full transparency in media?
Both will do.
Thank you. My interest in the NFL this year is so much lower than it has been in recent years. This isn't like some stand against Roger Goodell and the NFL because of the Rams thing. It's just, for whatever reason, I guess maybe it's because it's the first time since the Rams have left that Missouri was really in the mix up until losing to Georgia for the national championship and still, playing exciting football against Tennessee and Florida. So I'm just so engrossed by college football that I'm not paying that much attention to the NFL. Honestly, I'm also not building out daily fantasy rosters like a madman, which certainly kept me locked in, not necessarily caring about teams, but caring about players. So for full transparency's sake. Then, as I said, I was going to look at Instagram while you therapeutically discussed Missouri basketball again. And I see there's an article, a long-form article. I only do this to try to impress people. I don't even know what the Wall Street Journal is.
Right.
But I follow the Wall Street Journal on Instagram, kind of hoping to see something from Ella Reese, but it's probably too early for her. And the Wall Street Journal has written a long-form piece on Travis Kelce. And I go, my goodness, look what has gone on with Travis Kelce and the Kansas City Chiefs to the point that the Wall Street Journal is writing a long-form story on Travis Kelce. So, yeah, this is, I'm sure for Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, that this is the game on the schedule. And I'm sure for people around the country, it's a rematch of the Super Bowl. It's Kelce versus Kelce. The hashtag controversy with hashtag people taking to Twitter to discuss Travis Kelce appearing on the Eagles' Christmas album. Mm-hmm. Big topic. We'll get to that with Jeremy Rutherford momentarily. This is a potential Super Bowl rematch / preview. But keep an eye on Dan Campbell and the 8-2 Detroit Lions coming back yesterday to beat a very dangerous Chicago Bears team.
The Bears were the darling in terms of the sharps on the money.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. It was the Panthers. Let me tell you something. I hope you made money this weekend. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about, do you want to call it the royal you?
Yeah, sure.
If you made money this weekend, though, gambling on football, odds are you don't make money most weekends. This was Square's delight.
Yep.
This was Square's delight.
Yep. Yeah, the Bears were like the one sharp team, and they almost didn't cover, but luckily the Bears offensive lineman kicked the ball out of the end zone, so only to get a safety and not a touchdown, because that would have ruined plus 7.5.
The Scott Van Pelt bad beat. So, yes, it was a Square festival this weekend. Jeremy Rutherford will talk it over with us on the other side of the break. JR next here on Balloon Party, driven by Munganess Burkhardt, Alton Toyota on 101 ESPN and on YouTube. Welcome back, Balloon Party, driven by Munganass, Burkhardt, Alton Toyota. Tim McKernan, Jackson Burkett with you, and it is our pleasure to welcome to the program for his Monday tradition, unlike any other, the great Jeremy Rutherford. Morning, JR.
Yes. What's up?
Yes! Jackson's not doing well today. I don't know if you have any words of wisdom for him.
Jackson, it'll be okay. Somebody has to lose to those quad 4 teams.
Mizzou's also 0-2 against other teams with the name Tigers.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, a little fun fact, if you want to include that in your athletic news and notes.
Yeah.
I did not. We stayed away from the Tigers. I didn't want to be too hard on Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson's having a tough day. Therefore, I'm going to handle the hockey conversation today. Jackson will handle it.
Just real quick, the Ducks got a lot of work to do when it comes to the whole sweater logo thing.
It's a uniform
really
take.
Bad.
Red alert, uniform take.
Ducks are in bad shape.
I'm just impressed you watched the game to know what the uniforms look like.
I can see pictures.
He looked at the still pictures. JR, I mean, maybe it's overstating it. I remember last year after Doug Armstrong's big speech that the Thursday night game, I think it was in the first week of November, took on an incredible amount of importance against the Islanders. And I'm thinking to myself, who would have thought a Thursday night game in week 1 or the first week of November would matter this much to a team? But alas, that one did. They wound up losing it, by the way. In this case, it all happened Thursday night in San Jose and then Saturday against the Kings. But I'm thinking to myself, a lot of the equity this team built up with the fan base, perhaps with themselves, with this system, if it goes down like 4 or 5 to 1 against the Ducks last night, that just gets blown up, at least in my mind. So I felt like last night was a really important game. And fortunately, from the Blues standpoint, they were able to take care of business.
I'm right there with you, Tim. I really thought the same thing. Even going into the game, I felt like, you lose to San Jose, and I was kind of surprised by some of the fan take after that game because I thought it was just a lackluster loss, didn't show up, get behind to a team like that by a lopsided margin like that. It's like, what are you guys doing here? I mean, you just played well 5 or 6 games, but, a lot of the fans on my Twitter said just one game, we get past it. So I don't know if that's fans adopting the retool mindset or I just got the good crop of fans there on Twitter. But so I felt like then you lose to LA, and nothing wrong with losing to LA. They're a great team, 5th in the league standings right now. But I think to get blitzed in the first period, to have it fall apart early just like it did the other day, that you had to go into last night's game and take care of business and win that game. Because if you go 0-3 on this road trip, now's your first 3-game losing streak, chance to lose to Arizona on Wednesday, a team that's had your number. I think this was a big turning point to win yesterday.
With regard to Perunovic and seeing him get opportunity and performance as well, and the Blues power play, what did you think of what we've seen there, and do you think that's going to be something we're going to see more of going forward?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously the power play's been the headline all season long now, 4 for 52. And last night they get that double minor. You're up 1-0. It's a game you got to score. You got to take a multi-goal lead on that team and kind of put them away. And they didn't. And they got 4 shots on the 4-minute double minor. And I felt like then they go back on the power play, and I felt like Perunovic, they put him up on that top unit. They tried that 5 or 6 games ago. It didn't necessarily work. Krug went back up top, but last night they made the switch again, and Perunovic went back up top, and he made the play, Tim. He's on the board there, moves the puck over, and they eventually set up the goal by Buchnevich and get that power play goal. So I've liked him up there. I think his 5-on-5 defense is going to continue to improve, and I think you'll continue to see him in the lineup.
I was making this observation earlier in the show, and I'm curious what your assessment would be with the team having played, is it 18 games? Is that right, Jackson? We said 18 games?
I think that's right. 18
games. So, approaching a quarter of the way through the season. I don't feel like the Blues have had a lot of games where you go, not bad, or, that was fine. It's either they have really, really good performances or really, really bad. And certainly you can find exceptions to that. But that's how I've walked out of that building multiple times this year, the Enterprise Center, feeling that way, or watching games. And I don't know what that speaks to. I don't know if it speaks to a talent discrepancy or how the team kind of lives on the razor's edge with their system, and also a lack of depth that can allow them to hang with teams if they're not on. But, I feel like for about 14 of the 18 games, if I'm arbitrarily assigning grades, it's either been like a high B or A or a low D or F. And maybe that's just who they are. I don't know. What is your assessment?
No, the numbers are supporting what you're saying there. You look at last night, they get that first goal. And by the way, it could have gone the other way because the Ducks did score that first one, and then it was pulled back because of the offside. Who knows which direction that game goes. Blues show some heart and get back in there. But nonetheless, the Blues do get that first goal, and then Tim coming away with that win. They're now 8-0 when they score the first goal, and they're 0-7-1 when they give up the game's first goal. So that's kind of what it's been like. What you're saying is, I think you score first, you get another one, maybe you get some confidence, and they've been able to steer those games correctly. And we have not seen a Blues team that's been able to come back when they fall behind. And I think Chris Kerber, Alex Ferrario, they've had the stat. There's been no lead changes in any Blues game this year. Once they got out, they stayed in front. They won. If they're behind, they can't catch up, and that's going to have to change. I mean, obviously you want to hang on to your leads there, but if this team's going to have a chance at the playoffs, this is a team that's going to have to come back in some games because you just can't get that first goal every time. And I think that was part of Craig Berube's message the other night after the loss in L.A. is, hey, listen, we're going to get down. We need a better response from the leadership group to lead the way, and you're going to have some of those come from behind wins.
As far as the net minding assessment, a rough one on Thursday for Joel Hofer, and then over the weekend, certainly a discrepancy in the way things went for the Blues in L.A., and then heading down to Anaheim last night. How would you handicap where things are with the Blues net-minding tandem?
Yeah, I think pretty good shape. I think Jordan Binnington, to me, has been good all year. LA got to him and the Blues on Saturday night, but still, big picture, he's been good. And I think Hofer, we kind of expected that there'd be a little bit inconsistency. I wouldn't pin San Jose on him. There were some breakdowns there, and then he gets chased from the game, and Binnington has to come in. Just the way the schedule's set up, you have Hofer come back last night, and perfect situation. The Ducks, they had gone 8-2 in a 10-game stretch recently, but hadn't been scoring a lot. But I thought Hofer had to make a lot of point-blank saves, big saves, kept the Blues in the game when it's still 1-0, 2-0, and played really well. So to me, that's a good sign. The one thing with Hofer is you look at the goals against this year in his starts, it's been like 6-1, 3, 0, 4, so it's kind of been up and down. But I mean, I don't know what you expect from a guy who's going through this for the first time, but looked really good last night.
There it is. Jeremy Rutherford talking it over with us here every Monday on Balloon Party, and Jackson just not going to be able to pepper you with questions this week because of the Jackson State loss, but did have a nice observation on the Ducks sweaters.
Yeah, terrible. So are the Kings, for that matter.
Oh, you're down on the Kings, really?
The Kings, that logo is so bad.
Wow. Okay. Whose sweater do you enjoy?
The entire West Coast needs a lot of work.
Wow.
The Kraken do it the best, but outside of that,
that's the tradition.
The Coyotes are pitiful.
What about VGK? Do you count them as West Coast?
Yeah, pitiful.
Wow. This guy's got scalding hot takes this morning, JR.
Yeah, no, Jackson, I'm getting on a plane here shortly to head to AZ, so I'll be sure to pick up a Coyote sweater for you.
Oh, yeah, those are beautiful.
Leave those at that little college arena they play in.
Wow. They're going to be playing this clip on Phoenix Sports Talk Radio today.
Good. I hope they have me on.
Hey, I hope you guys enjoy National Sports Writer Holiday on Thursday.
Yes. You just gluttony and fat.
Yeah, and then
the world is our press box.
They moved that game to 2 p.m. Friday at Enterprise against Nashville, so probably still be in a coma at that point. Getting ready for that.
There you go. Yeah, Nashville on Friday afternoon at Enterprise Center. JR will be in a food coma still 24 hours later. Heading to Arizona for the fun and games and getting Jackson a Coyote sweater. That'll be a nice little holiday gift for you, Jackson.
Make it Clayton Keller if you're going to do it, JR.
Oh, nice.
I like Clayton Keller.
I can't believe he's on the team.
JR, thank you so much.
See you guys.
There he is. Yeah, look at you. You just keep spiking on people here.
Well, I've said this before, but my father was Clayton Keller's principal in middle school.
Oh, you didn't have to include that.
So that's a key piece of information right there.
You still floored Jamie Rivers with the McDavid Draisaitl. He texted me. He just was stunned right when that happened.
Yeah. I had so much equity. I'm still riding the high of that, even though
they're on the power play with Pietrangelo in Edmonton.
Well, you got to take a look at Edmonton, man.
What does that mean?
I don't know. They play up there, way up north.
Jackson's going to go review Jackson State film. We're going to shut it down because BK and Ferrari are up next. For Jackson Burkett, I'm Tim McKernan. This has been Balloon Party, driven by Munganess, Burkhardt, Alton, Toyota, here on 101 ESPN and on YouTube.